So then what do you want to do with that signal? And it may not be appropriate to go into yellow or green. It might be, but I find it gives me more choice when I remember that other colors exist, even if I'm not in them. That's what gives me more freedom to choose what program I want to be running in my nervous system instead of being run by my nervous system. Because as long as that TikTok is governing your nervous system, it's in control of you, not you.
Good day, spiritual artists. This is CJ Miller, your host for the Spiritual Artist Podcast. I am very excited about today's guests. That's right, plural. We have two guests coming in today. One of them you might recognize, Wilene Dunn. She's been on the show before, and we've talked about some other wonderful, powerful techniques like the power of the word. And she's a good friend of mine. She is a CEO, author, and coach. As a multifaceted professional dedicated to empowering others through her work as an author, an entrepreneur, and coach. She's also written two children's books. I don't know if you remember that from our discussion last time, but she has kind of paired up with Dr. Renee Ostertag for this book. And we're going to talk about this newly released book, which I'm really excited to talk about. Dr. Renee, or Renee, is an award-winning health and wellness speaker known internationally. Her audience include the medical field, attorneys, therapists, and the general public. Her specialties are ergonomics, pain, resilience, and nervous system regulation. So good morning, y'all. Good morning, Renee. How are you?
Fantastic, and happy to be here.
Oh, it's nice to have you. It's nice to have you. And Wilene, how are you today?
Good, very good. Listen, I'm with two of my most favorite people on the planet.
That's a good thing, right?
Yes, yes.
So I want to share.
Regulate my nervous system.
That's exactly, you know what? I'm so excited to talk about this, Renee. Nervous system is such a growing field, I think, and it's also in my own personal experience. I have shared with my listeners that I have a tremor, and it developed in the last 10 or so years. And I'm a painter, and so it's an issue because I have a tremor, and I've been really, and I do yoga on a regular basis, and really focusing on the nervous system. So I'm excited to talk about this book that you both co-authored. Is that correct?
Yes.
So the book is called Getting My Happy Back: How to Think and What to Do When Body and Mind Collide. So go ahead, Renee, tell me a little bit about your idea for this book.
My idea for this book really originated itself in Wilene's neck. And what I mean by that is that Wilene and I were working together on some speaking projects, and then life does what it does. And the pandemic said, you're going to put the brakes on your speaking career right now. So Wilene and I are in a conversation. She starts having neck pain. My background for the last 20 plus years is in physical therapy, specifically where your muscles and bones intersect with your thinking, feeling, belief systems, behaviors, past and present life experience. Wilene's got neck pain. I said, let me help you out. She's in Dallas. I'm in Denver. I was able to help her. And she said, wow, that was fantastic. Thank you. Let's write a book together. And I said, well, the pandemic is here, so yes.
That sounds great. You know, I love this idea because we all talk about how our emotional state, our thinking aligns with our body, but I don't know if many people really dive deep into it.
It takes a certain kind of courage to dive deep into a field, an ocean of a lot of unknowns. Our nervous system is 100 billion neurons with 100 trillion connections. So there's no way we can actually understand it all. There will always be a mysterious piece to it. And mystery, just naturally, the nature of it evokes fear, terror. So we're actually primed to avoid looking at the very thing that would serve us best to look at. It's a
Yeah.
paradox of the human condition that's not easy to rumble, but in my experience, very well worth its while.
And I mean, the title of the book and the subtitle is How to Think and What to Do When Body and Mind Collide. And that's when those two areas, people have phantom pain. I mean, there's just so much about pain in the mind and how it's tied together. And if you don't mind, I mean, I just want to read the back. Charlie Merrill, who is very close to Renee, is a mind-body PT, and he said modern neuroscience confirms that all pain, regardless of the cause, is 100% of the time constructed by and experienced in the brain. The implications of this really demand a radical paradigm shift.
The book is full of techniques. So I went through it. I love to go through and I highlight things that trigger me or make me want to talk about. And there's so much in here, but I wanted to kind of gear us towards one area that I hope you can share on. So I would tell the listeners that this book has so many different techniques in here and some concepts, but I wondered if you could talk, Renee, a little bit about this mood meter and your four selves. How does that work?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to give credit to Dr. Mark Brackett. He wrote a book called Permission to Feel, and the mood meter that we have in the book is based largely on his work. And if there's a possibility to show the mood meter, that can be helpful. My background is in physical therapy, and the question that we ask is 1 to 10, what's your pain? 1 to 10, what's your pain? And that question really locks people into the circuits of pain and doesn't create a lot of space for possibility. As you can see on this mood meter, there's 2 1 to 10 scales, which infinitely opens up possibilities for you that can exist beyond just 1 to 10 narrow thinking. So on the left-hand side, there's 1 to 10 energy. It's not good or bad or right or wrong. It's just high energy that we need to do sports and hard things, and low energy that we need to sleep and digest food. On the bottom, the x-axis, there's pleasantness, 1 to 10. Again, not right or wrong or good or bad. It's just that life includes things that are pleasant and less so. So this mood meter breaks down very, very complex feelings and life experiences, as you said, in our body, in our brain, and organizes it, which for me is very helpful because life can be overwhelming. Our sensations can be overwhelming. Our feelings, relationships, it can be so overwhelming. So let's just simplify it into these 4 quadrants that measure energy and pleasantness. On the left low side is low energy, low pleasant, blue quadrant. On the top left-hand side is the red box, high energy, low pleasant. Move over, you've got yellow, high energy, high pleasant. Move down, you've got green, low energy, high pleasant. And in each color box is different words. And the idea behind Mark Brackett's mood meter is to build emotional skills, because the average American young adult and child, our emotional skills are very poor. The average American knows 3 human emotions that we can label: happy, mad, sad. Brene Brown's research suggests that we need 30 emotions to be able to articulate, to have a wholehearted life. So yellow, you have things like upbeat, festive, optimistic. Green, things like calm, peaceful, restful. Blue, there's sensations like lonely, miserable, tired, sad. Red, angry, furious, worried, panicked, scared. What I've done with the mood meter, because my background and interest lies in the bones and muscles as a physical therapist, is what are the emotional motor programs of each of these words? So people that, so each of these colors and words, energies and pleasantness, has an expression in the body. And so linking what's your physiology when your system's in red? What's your physiology when your system's in blue? What's your physiology in green? What's your physiology in yellow? People that are stuck in pain innocently through no fault of their own often have a nervous system that's chemically stuck or frozen or locked into more red and blue circuits, which don't help optimize the body's natural ability to heal. And this happens not because of a character flaw or something we've done wrong, but it's a mismatch between our primitive wiring and the modern day ecosystem. We have this negativity bias. We're wired to assume that the rustling bush is a lion, not a cute bunny rabbit, because those that stuck around for the cute bunny rabbit didn't hang out for years to come. So our genetic lineage benefited us from a survival standpoint to have that negativity bias. The challenge with that is that something unpleasant, sucky, bad, wrong, sad happens in your life. Your nervous system goes into a state of shock, locks around it, and that's what wires in the red and blue that keeps states of pain ongoing and blocks us from completing stress responses and moving flexibly throughout all four colors in our body and our brain. That was a
So,
lot to say, sorry.
no, that was.
All at the same
That
time.
was lovely.
No, it's good. So what I'm
Yeah.
hearing is that we're not meant to stay in any quadrant. I mean, we are supposed to jump around, right? We're supposed to
Yeah.
experience them all.
Yes.
And I also heard, or what, let me see if this is correct. We could have the ability to get stuck in red or blue on only certain issues in our life, right? I mean, it's not all across the board. We might be fine in the office, but in romance, boy, we get stuck over there in red. Is that correct?
Totally. And then sadly, what happens is you're stuck in red, so your system's holding on to that. So then the yellow and green events that do happen in your life tend to be like water off a duck's back because your circuits aren't open to be able to receive and soak them up.
It's
And
really
that
interesting,
moves
So
you
then it
into the
creates a
most
self-fulfilling
favorite,
prophecy.
and
right?
that moves you into the most favorite self. Say what you said. You paused there, so I talked over you. I'm sorry. Say that again.
Well, what I heard Chris say is that, in the office, yeah, I'm flowing, I'm yellow and green, and maybe this isn't you, but just a lot of us can relate. But then in this context of life, whether it's parenting or finance or weight loss or romance, your circuits subconsciously, you're not choosing this, you're not the one, your nervous system did that through no fault of your own. Then you're locked into the red and blue. And when your circuits are locked up into red and blue, your circuits are not available to soak, savor, and experience the yellow and green that is happening around you, but your system isn't oriented to it and it is not able to experience it because it's more like water off a duck's back because the protective mechanism of that red and blue kind of acts like a shield. So you're not soaking up the yellow and the green that is around you.
You know, I love that because one of the things that I teach my artists when they come on a retreat is that to be creative, we need to let the emotions flow. It's not that they're bad. You don't hold them back, and you experience them, but you experience them in a fluid emotion, energy in motion. You just let them flow through you, and that when you create art, you can create art in any of those four quadrants. I mean, it might be harder in the blue, but you can create art in there. And when you do, if you do it freely, it shifts. It can shift for you, so I really like what you're saying there. And I can see how, like you talk about the law of attraction, you can really get stuck in one area and then you can't feel the other quadrants. They don't come to you. I noticed a couple things I wanted to share with you that I thought was interesting. And then I want to talk to you a little bit about how to use this, right? First, before we did this call, I did some Googling and I'm trying to find this chart. And I noticed that some people have charts up there and the words are different. The words aren't all the same. So do you recommend this man's chart, or do you think that they're okay that they shift them around a little bit?
as I understand it, Mark Brackett's original work is the 10 by 10 words that I have in mine. There has been evolution and growth, as is normal with science. When life and time moves
Yeah.
forward, evolution, new events occur. I'd encourage people to use whatever works for them. If you like it, you're more apt to use it. He also has an app called How We Feel. That's convenient for a lot of people because it's an app, it's on your phone. He's got other words there. There's more robustness. What can happen with more and more and more is that it loses the simplicity and the order that gives people a sense of, gives me a sense of control and, okay, I can do this, right? Because things can grow and grow and grow. And then it's like, oh, this is out of control again. And then I put the whole thing over there because it's too much.
Yeah, that's very true. I would share with our listeners, that's great that there's an app available. Even searching, I don't know if you know this, I thought it was pretty amazing. Like there's people on Etsy that are actually selling framed, you buy this as a piece of art and you hang it in your house. Isn't that great? So like, you walk through your living room and it reminds you, right? It reminds you to kind of do, what would you call that? A sort of a check,
Yeah,
Wilene? Yeah. Yeah. Wilene, do you keep something posted in your house as you've gone through this process to remind you of, oh my God.
so in my office, I have this, and I also have a 4 foot by 4 foot one that we put on the floor, like a twister board. So I am always in this conversation with my patients and clients, and it really is helpful to become more, not only emotionally illiterate, but somatic emotionally literate, right? How these emotions live in the body. And just, I have people that print it up. They have it on their refrigerator. They have it as a part of their conversations with spouses, with kids. Humans, the human system has three main intelligences: thinking, feeling, behaving. A lot of us are overthinkers and hyperachievers, and that emotional illiteracy really kind of creates some drag on the system. It's like only using two of your three wheels on a tricycle. It's a bumpy ride, and it puts more wear and tear on the other two wheels of thinking and behaving. So there's a lot of imbalance that can occur. So I love having the art up or on your fridge or on the wall, because it really helps bring this third piece into the mix. And then you're using all three wheels of your tricycle, which makes a smoother ride through life.
And
Well,
I do
makes
have it. I have it actually on my calendar. It's just, in my paper calendar, so I can pull it out. But I also want to tell the listeners to be encouraged that when you practice this on a regular basis, you learn where your stuck point is. Like Renee and I in our practice together learned she was more red, right? She ran more in the red side, and I ran more in the blue side. And so I would tend more to that sadness. She would tend more to the, "Oh, this makes me really mad," side. So, and our experiences of each other, you can use this too when you're dealing with other people. It's not just you, but you can then identify kind of where people in your relationship sit. And I think this is a good time to kind of segue into then our most favorite selves. My most favorite self is yellow. I don't want to be in red. I don't like red. I'll be in blue. But through Renee's, coaching, it is important, just the way we've gone through this, is to experience all of them. And there's a practice in the book called Round the World Storytelling, which is my favorite, but we're not going to talk about that today. So you'll have to get the book.
we might still have time. We might still have time. So Wilene, since you were kind of the guinea pig in this book, or at least I felt like you were, talk about this. Talk about one of your situations. And here I pulled up the chart. And how did you use this to work through it? Maybe one of your health issues, or if you're willing to be extra vulnerable.
Yes. Well, we can do a live one right now. So I'm having an experience. And that experience is sometimes when I'm in these conversations, I get a pain right here in my throat, like I'm having my voice, right? So, do we want to go through this,
Sure.
Renee? You can just take me through this process around the world storytelling.
Sure. First thought, no judging or regulating around it. That pain, what does it bring up in you? How does it make you feel? What's your story around it?
So I just feel like I'm muted, like I'm having this conversation, and yet somewhere in me, in my nervous system, it feels muted. So I get this pain. Like there wasn't a whole lot of thought around it. It just showed up when you were talking about the mood meter, and my mind said, I'm muted here. Like I'm not having my voice in this.
Mhm.
So, pleasantness, 1 to 10, how would you rate that experience?
Um, gosh, despair.
Ooh, okay. So take a moment to just notice your body and notice that your system is in blue around this.
Yeah.
Right. So the blue story around the pain in the neck is that I'm not being heard. I'm muted.
Yeah.
Okay. See if you can kind of move your body, bring
Yeah.
the energy up. See if you can find some red energy inside of you. And if you were to stand in red and think about this pain in this context, what would the story be? How would you,
Uneasy.
okay.
Yeah.
What else about that?
Um, well, just that this is you know, it's not fun to experience pain in my body. And for the listeners, go through this with us in this idea of where you're experiencing it. And to be inquisitive about it. So I would just say, uneasy, in the red side, despair in the blue side. Like, what am I gonna do? How do I move past this?
Yeah. See if you can shake your body a little bit and see from the place that you're at now, is there any accessibility within you to orient towards green or yellow?
Yeah, I'm absolutely secure. I'm with two people that I care about, that I know care about me, and absolutely want to hear me. And so I can move to secure.
Okay,
And
so
the pain dissipates, right? The pain dissipates when I get to that. Like I'm not feeling it like I was. It went from probably an 8 to now a 2.
okay, so take a moment to let that register in your senses, in your body. And it sounds like when you make your way towards an experience of green inside of you, the pain in your throat changes.
Hmm.
It sounds like the story around the pain is that you are safe, you are secure, you are loved, you do matter. And then when you register those circuits and run them, the pain changes. Am I getting that right?
Yep.
Okay. And if you wanted to, for the sake of thoroughness and being a nimble nervous system ninja, is there anywhere inside of you that can find the color yellow?
Yes, I'm happy.
Okay, when you're happy and you're experiencing this pain in your neck, what's the story that you make around it?
Just I think moving through it from telling you in the red and the blue, not having my voice is what was causing that, right? I felt I had a story running, though silently. It wasn't, you know, I noticed my pain first. So Chris kind of said that at one point, like the my pain showed up first before my acknowledgement around my thought. Right. So that is a really, we do a process in the book on my wrist, same thing. It's so this time my pain is what pushed it, and I can get to happy. So when I did that journey, and in my mind said, of course I have my voice, yes I'm secure, and I can be in my most favored self, which is happy.
And yeah. And so when you're there, what's this story about the pain? What's the story about the meaning of the relationship to that pain?
That I can have my voice. And I do have it, and I'm having it now. And I want to be more in that space of openness and knowing that I'm secure, safe, and I can be in my happy space and have my voice all at the same time.
There's so much happening here. Chris, can I take a moment to kind of pause and
Yeah.
share with the listeners? There's a lot to unpack with this. This is so normal and natural. And you mentioned it earlier, Chris. Things often start in the body. And there was a pain in Wilene's neck. And the very normal, natural first reaction is often blue or red. And what Wilene did there was name it to tame it. When we can name our emotional experience, which is what her body was having, an emotional pain that was showing up physically, a social pain that was showing up physically, when she named it, it was then more fluid, flexible, and able to shift. And then her story was able to move into red, uneasy. Well, that's natural, that's normal. Pain, unpleasant sensation should make you uneasy. But then she oriented to safety. And this is the part where vulnerability is absolutely necessary for our survival, because we weren't wired to get out of pain alone. What Wilene did to move from red to green was she oriented to the two of us as safe people. And then her physical pain changed. And then from there, she was able to shift up into this happy, joyful recognition that the body signal was from the past. I'm not heard. My voice doesn't matter. To wait a second, this moment, present day experience. Here I am with two people that care about me. She literally went around the world with those four colors, with guidance and support, because we're all needing co-regulation. And her physical pain was able to change. The stories that she was making up about herself, the belief that she has about herself, all of that was able to change. That's a very, very high level skill that Wilene just demonstrated for us in the flexibility of her nervous system, because like you said, Chris, we're meant to go and move through all the colors, not get stuck or stay in any one.
I love that. Now, what would happen if, Wilene, what would happen if you couldn't say that Renee and I are safe? Like, what if you didn't have that? How can you go back to that step and say, okay, what if there was someone on this call that didn't feel safe?
Well, I would go into gratitude. I would still find somewhere in the green side that supported my nervous system to release that alarm, right? Because that's all it was. My body was giving me an alarm that something was going on in my nervous system that I was not aware of, consciously aware of. And so when I drew my consciousness to it and named it, as not having my voice. So I would just find another something in the green. I would find gratitude, peace. Gratitude's good for me though. I can do gratitude. You may have a different color. You might gravitate more to peace or calm, but that's why the words are helpful too, because we resonate with different words. I mean, when we hear a word, our systems regulate different to that word, right? You respond differently. So if I was with unsafe people and I couldn't have my voice, then this alert system would be saying, get out of here. On this call. But see, that's the fight, flight, or freeze response. So that would be a flight response that I would have from an alarm going off. And that's what's so rich about this book. It goes through all of that kind of exploration. And Renee goes into the fight, flight, and freeze. And yeah.
I'm going to pause because, Wilene, two things. You mentioned earlier you tended more blue, I tend more red. everybody has a sort of default mode when threat is being perceived. Fight, flight, or freeze. It's our defense mechanism, and it's context specific. But the interesting thing is that the blue does tend to correlate with more of a freeze response, and the red tends to correlate more of a fight or flight response. And over here in yellow, that's also sympathetic arousal, fight or flight, in the context of safety. So it becomes more energy and enthusiasm. And then the green tends to correlate more with a ventral vagus social engagement regulated system. So when Wilene had pain in her neck, she went blue. That's her system's default mode. We all have like a default mode that we go to most preferable. So some people just resonate more in the higher energy, red and yellow. Some people resonate or live more naturally in lower energy, green and blue. I don't know if this is fair to say. I haven't thought of it like this before, but I wonder if there's truth to it. It could be totally bogus. But what if introverts are more lower energy and extroverts are higher energy? Never thought about it like that before.
Yeah, I,
Well,
I
I'm
don't
definitely
know.
an extrovert and I run blue, green. Oh,
Well, one of the things that's neat about this chart is it shows that emotions have sort of a scale. And so what we sometimes, you know how they say okay, so here's an example. I just did some public speaking yesterday, and no matter what, it feels like when I do public speaking, I get worked up beforehand. I don't sleep well the night before. I get nervous. I get all worked up. Yet my husband will say to me, try to tweak that. Instead of saying I'm nervous, say you're excited. That's it. So tell me, can you instead of feel that feeling that you've somehow associated negatively and sort of feel it with a new viewpoint?
What's beautiful about that is that the neurochemistry, the biology is fairly identical between nervous and excited, right? Because over here, like if you go, here's nervous, and you go down the line, you've got energized, lively, enthusiastic, and excited. It's literally on the same level of nervous system arousal. So he's not wrong. He's encouraging you to look at speaking with a more yellow lens instead of red.
Isn't it interesting, Renee, that somewhere in my life, I started associating high energy excitement with negative, like that it's wrong. And all I can think of is I was always told as a child that I'm too loud, I'm too dramatic, I'm too expressive, I'm too emotional. And so I've taught myself that all those things that people are attracted to me for, like when I let it out, people are attracted to me for it, but I've been told to feel bad about it. And so I
Yeah.
stay in the red.
Yeah, it sounds like a 1-2 punch, right? Your past experiences of who you are naturally were made wrong. And that was linked to your survival. You know, the people around you, you needed them for food, water, shelter. So you better do the things that make them happy, right? So you suppress your yellow, you pin it into red. We've got the negativity bias from 50 million years of evolutionary wiring. You were set up for that. So none of that is something that you chose. Your nervous system did it. It's showing up in your life. Thankfully, your husband, other people, we can change. The nervous system is plastic. All of it is malleable and shapeable. And I find a lot of hope in that.
man,
I
I'm
love
glad
that.
you said that. Yeah, me too. Because we've talked about that a lot in this idea of growing up where your survival counted on you saying, no, that's not true about me. No, I'm sorry I did that. And then you get into your adulthood, and that's why our book is so helpful. And these processes are so helpful, is to really identify and get into it a new, just identify that happened when you were a kid, but now you know stuff, right? you've had life experience. You can move past that and use some techniques like we just went through to reorient. I like that word that you use a lot. Reorient to the now. And that's exactly what we did in that process. But I don't know. I love it that you said that because I just discovered that. I just turned 55 and I just discovered that a lot of this that I'm dealing with is exactly what you said and what Chris just said. And that is I was in survival mode to always be not authentic. And now I can be authentic because I can take care of myself, right? I'm not adhering to a parental or a religious or a something that says I can't be fully me, loud, fun, having all that authentic self.
So talk to me a little bit here. You talk about my favorite self, and Renee, you explained that a little bit already. Or did you? You said that when I said that I would agree with you. I tend to go to, for me, I go to red. When I'm under a tense situation, a threatening situation, I go to red. Is that one of these 4 quadrants that you're talking about? Or is that, would that be considered my most familiar self?
Yeah, there's remember what I said about 1 to 10 pain, you're kind of limited. Here we've got more choices. So the 4 color quadrants in the book, we talk about your 4 selves, your most favorite self, your least favorite self, your most familiar self, and your least familiar self. So Chris, I don't know. You and I do seem to be a little bit more sympathetically primed, right? We tend to run a little higher.
That's such a nice way of saying it, Renee.
It's how we're made. And it is what it is. It just, that's the way humans are. And so my chemically most familiar self, because it's the default mode strategy that my system goes to under threat, is absolutely red. Like I will go pissed off and furious. I will assume the worst. Like it is a fast reaction. So I would say for me, my most chemically familiar place historically is red. But what I find wonderfully hopeful is that we can train, we can change. You change the input, you get new output. I've worked on meditation, yoga, relaxing my body, self-regulating, the ability to relax in the face of perceived threat, doing a lot of improv, getting more comfortable with the unknown. And so my most chemically familiar state is actually changing over time. That's where I find it hopeful and promising. Green used to be my least familiar place. I could get there, but it was work, it was effort. It's like carving a new path through a forest. But if you keep carving that path and walking that trail, you get to new destinations. And so the most familiar place for me historically is red, but I've been working on changing that towards more green. My most familiar, my favorite self was absolutely yellow. It's fun, it's happy, like I love being there. It's like the best, like it, and it can be addictive for sure. My least favorite self was absolutely blue. The despair, the helplessness, a lot of unresolved grief that I carried lived in blue, and I was very afraid of it. So I would avoid blue, effort towards yellow because that was my favorite, and I wanted to stay away from my least favorite. And I couldn't always hold it, and there's threats happening all around. So then I shift into red because that's the place to go because I didn't want to drop down to blue. And I wasn't familiar with red, like the duck with the water. Like I couldn't hold green. My system wasn't, the cells weren't available to receive it. So it's interesting to think about your most familiar, your least familiar, your favorite, your least favorite. It's always going to be context specific. And it's interesting to see other people too, how they show up and think about that.
Yeah, being more self-aware and just noticing the people around you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Lovely. That's
So
lovely.
what do you think your most familiar self is, Chris?
I think Renee and I are probably very similar. And I would think that I'm shifting. I'm definitely shifting, and I'm more in green now than ever before, you know. Um, but
Can
I
I share
definitely
something?
revert to red.
I want to share something. So I'm opposite, right? I don't like the red. So I want to, I would much rather be in blue. That was my most familiar self. But, but I want to say that it's interesting in life experience. So I want people to hear this. When you're having a life experience and you're in this idea, I wanted my most desired self was yellow. Oh, that's where I wanted to be. But but every time I was in yellow, like I was really happy, something would happen that would discourage me, make me sad, or because my default was, and I was drawing in even in my life experience. So this is not just a chart. This is, I mean, this is your experiences. So when you're having um an experience, I I used to when I was in my dating life, somebody go, "Hey, how's so and so? Are you?" I'm like, "Oh my God, we're so happy. It's so much fun." And I'm telling you, almost immediately something would happen that would make me sad in that relationship. I'm like, "What is that?" I know what it is now. So when you're having when you tend to a certain place like blue or red, that when you try to move to another place or you live in that most favored place most of the time, when you're there, the other will show up. And it's just for you to acknowledge and be aware, right? Because you can eventually shift into where you're happy most of the time or where you're grateful most of the time. But when you've lived a pretty full life in the other, it will show up in your life experience. When you're having happy, all of a sudden some disappointment or discouragement will show up. And I'm in that place right now where I do experience happy most of the time, more motivated, more inspired, but the blue experience will show up. And if I don't do this work regularly, I will stay in blue. I will get discouraged. I'll go eat something bad. I'll go to sleep and I'll do my whole freeze thing, right? And so I'm just encouraging the listeners. This is a work and it shows up in your everyday life, in your physical body pains, in your experiences you're having. So go back to this, read this book, use these techniques to, because you can shift this. This is something you can shift and live in a more favored self on a more regular basis.
That's one that I love that. I want to share something because you said that, Wilene, something that I noticed in my own life. Um, Sometimes for me, I found that I had to look at my family of origin.
Mm.
And I suddenly started realizing that my family lives in red. They are such red people. And you know what's funny, Renee? One of the words that's missing from that red chart, which I just want to jam in there, is critical. Critical. Because it's such a part of being red in my family. Like we default to that. Bitch, 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 complain, complain. That is where we're most comfortable. I read a book and I interviewed a woman, probably a year or two ago, about the Alexander technique. And this was a man in the 30s that talked about one of the things that I really loved about his concept was we are comfortable in what we're raised in. It feels good, right? That's what I'm used to being in. I'm used to being in critical, bitchy. You come to a party and you're like, look at the weather and this food is bad. That's where I come from. And then you criticize politics and then you criticize the government. And so I think that what he taught was stepping out of that comfort zone. It doesn't feel comfortable because it's not comfortable to you. It's not familiar.
I
So
would even go as far to say as that people are chemically comfortable, which has very similar tones to it of being chemically addicted. And so to leave that uncomfortable comfort zone, A, it's uncomfortable. B, there's a withdrawal period. And if
Yep.
you're not aware of that, you'll go back to it. And that's why people keep self-sabotaging. It's because the system is trying to stay safe in what is chemically comfortable and familiar. And we're often subconsciously unaware that we're chemically addicted to that particular color.
Whew,
That's powerful stuff.
it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. And I see it in my family where a lot of health issues are coming up with all of them, you know. Um, and if I hadn't stumbled into exercise and yoga and meditation, I'd probably be in the same spot, you know. But I love that chemical. That's a whole new subject, Renee, that I haven't. Yeah. So I know we're running out of time, and I want to use this chart. You talk about, was it storytelling or, um, let me see here, navigating the colors of your nervous system. Can we talk about this briefly? This concept of the, you mentioned having it on the floor, Renee, and I want to talk about this for something specific that's so important today. Now, I love how you're working with illness and body issues, but I think just as a consciousness technique, that this is a very good process. Let's talk about and share this with the listeners. If you're flipping through TikTok or social media and there's something inflames you, like you read a post that is what you call a trigger. Could you use this system? Could you use this system to walk yourself out of that?
Absolutely. So you identify the emotion and then look for the other points in it. Like Renee took me through where the pain originated. To me, it was blue going to red. What is that story? And telling the same story. So I see a TikTok, it triggered me because the man was hitting his wife.
Okay, good.
And so then I it feels really sad to me because that's where I'm going to default to first, because that's my most familiar self. So I get sad about that. And then I go, okay, but that enrages me because that is not okay. Not publicly, not domestically, not inside your home. It's not okay. But this was something I want. So how can I get back to green and regulate away from that trigger and go, I just want to be in gratitude that it doesn't look like anyone was harmed and that I'm safe and okay in my place and that I choose good relationships, which then in turn can take me to I'm happy and optimistic about where I'm headed. And that's all we can ever do, right? Is in our own system and moving through those things as quickly as possible to get us back to somewhere that is more system regulated. You want to live in the green or the yellow. You want to be in a space that doesn't push you. I mean, allow it, be in it, recognize it, but tell the same story in all four colors so that you can get a contrast and a shift and you can experience all four emotions. Renee really talks about this a lot and I love it. She's always about have it all, have every emotion. So when you're triggered, but don't get stuck in red, don't get stuck in yellow, don't get stuck in green or or blue, but move through all of them with the very same story, and then you're like, okay, that doesn't feel so bad when I can get over here to I'm grateful I don't have a relationship like that, and I'm happy that I'm not on TikTok with an abusive partner. Right? No, that's not, and all we can do is ourselves, and handle those things as quickly as possible so that I can continue to experience the stuff in my life that I want. I often tell people I don't want it to visit my house. So whatever you're watching, whatever's triggering you is something that you're connected to. So you want to move as quickly as you can to a softer, regulated, color and more emotion around something that's more palatable, just so you can move on and be in a better place for yourself and your relationships and the people around you, and for having, experiencing all your dreams and ideas. That was a lot.
What? And I'm going to counter that though. So let's talk about this. Renee, I'm going to tell you, I see the concept, I understand it, but I don't always know how to jump. So, okay, I was looking on TikTok yesterday. There's a lot. I mean, it's all inflammatory, but I saw a video, something that's a big pet peeve for mine is when people show pet videos and they think it's cute, but an animal is getting hurt. In my eyes, let's say that in my eyes, an animal's getting hurt. So I saw a video where these 3 dogs were eating. They looked like they were starving. They were eating really fast. And the one dog attacks the other dog and the owner doesn't say anything. I mean, very aggressively attacked the dog. If my dog attacked another dog, like it was biting its neck. Very upsetting for me. So I think I was probably, in my default mode. That's one thing. TikTok is a great default mode meter, right? if you want to know where you go first, you can look at this chart, open TikTok, boom, I was in, right?
Touche.
So I was in red. I was enraged. I was angry. I'm mad. So I know that. I know where I'm at. And then if I really analyze it, I will tell you this, I slide down into sad because I feel sad for all the animals that are abused, that aren't taken care of, where humans are, their cruelty, this is my mind, the cruelty of a human has hurt it. Now, Renee, I'm stuck.
Yeah.
How?
So there's a couple options that I see as fairly low-hanging fruit. Number 1, seeing the underlying positive intention of each color and honoring that. Red is an indicator of a perceived injustice. What's yours to do in this situation? And it might be something, it might be nothing, it might be something else not related to TikTok, but inspires something else somewhere else in your life. Perceived injustice around treatment of animals. Right? So what's the purpose of red? Because if it's true that every feeling has an underlying positive intention and every response in the body has reason and purpose behind it, get curious. What's behind the red? What's mine to do? Okay, then next tool that you can do is, this is red, that's fine. Red's appropriate. A lot of the time in life, we need it. But then you did it automatically. You sort of said, oh, well, red's not the only color that exists in this world here. It's my default, but oh, what's the other color? And then you sort of drop into blue, which is a deeper layer of what's true for you. Right? Sadness is a way to honor something that has been lost. And what's been lost is respect, dignity, care, and love for an animal, which is meaningful to you because you're not, sociopathic. So then what do you want to do with that signal? And it may not be appropriate to go into yellow or green. It might be, but I find it gives me more choice when I remember that other colors exist, even if I'm not in them. That's what gives me more freedom to choose what program I want to be running in my nervous system instead of being run by my nervous system. Because as long as that TikTok is governing your nervous system, it's in control of you, not you. And I'm a big fan of controlling what I have control over, which is my skin and case body some of the time.
Me too.
Yeah.
So there's interesting, a couple things came to mind. I get red, and then I could do there's a couple things. I could just turn off TikTok, just turn it off.
Yeah.
I could also report it, if I want to do that. I go up and report it as offensive or violent. That's one of the choices you have. I'm not sure that either one would move me. I mean, I guess if I reported it, it might move me into, let me see the chart again here. I don't know if it could get me that far.
It gives you a choice, though. And when you're stuck in one or the other, you don't have choice. I mean, I think Renee started with that. Her whole point is you just can't move anywhere else if you're stuck, if you're having that emotion and you're unwilling to move it. And I think the around the world storytelling does that for me. It allows me, I do all 4 quadrants. I go ahead and try to get to yellow. I don't necessarily have to live in that space with the particular thing, but when I can get there, what I can see for myself is it's my perspective and it's my choice of where I live with that. And then what she was saying too is then I can make a conscious choice, to report it, like you said, or do something about it. What is mine to do was hers. What is mine to do here? Do I do something? But always remembering when you're regulating and you're settling your system on a regular basis, when you're triggered, number one, you're training your nervous system to do that. So you're not going to be triggered as often by things. So you can go right to choice, right? You could be right in choice. You see that, you don't get triggered. You're like, I'm reporting every one of those that I see. I don't get triggered anymore. I'm just a choice. And I think that's what the Round the Story world storytelling does for me. It allows me a choice because when I'm in my old default of sad with everything, when I'm triggered, I have no choices. I can't do anything else. So I'll find something in every one of those quadrants in that one story. You stay in the story, the one story, right? And you go through it just like we did with the throat thing. You stay in that. Doesn't mean you have to stay in yellow or stay in green, but it gives you choice.
So I know we're going a little bit long, and I want to thank you, Wilene. I really like that. Renee, is there anything else you want to share about the book or about this conversation?
I would say that it can be scary and exciting, and take a page out of Chris's book and choose excitement over fear when it comes to getting to know your own nervous system, because it is the engine that runs your life. And my father was an auto mechanic, and he said, Renee, if you can fix people, you can have a good business. And I don't, people can be fixed. I don't know if we're broken or not, or all that. But what I do know is that the more I take an active role in controlling that which I have control over, and sometimes control means surrender and let go and trust a process. But if you want more control in your life, get to know your own nervous system.
Love that.
And befriend it, because it doesn't want to be hurting you. It wants to be on your back. It wants to be on your side, and it wants to have your back. And I think that's available for everybody. It's a mysterious process, but it is one worth taking.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. This has been a great call. It goes back. I was thinking about how I dealt with my family of origin issue. And when realizing my family comes with that anger, being at choice is sometimes it's just about noticing it, just being aware of it. And I remember I'd go to an event and they're all running. The minute they get there, they're, oh my God, the traffic, all criticizing everything, right? Where's the food? Da, da, da. It's hot in here. And I would just sit there and watch it. I learned to just not be of it, just watch it.
Yeah, you had a choice, right? You gave yourself a choice.
Yeah.
So pick up the book. It's a great read. You'll love it. Renee and I both coach around the book and the principles and techniques in the book. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We're here to support this work because we know when we all have regulated nervous systems that work, then we all get along better and we can be in relationship to the things we're in relationship with. And that includes what's going on in our world right now. Right? Having a regulated nervous system in our current state in the world is so super important. So do your work for you and for the world.
Oh, well put, Willie. Thank you. Thank you both for being on the show. Listeners, thanks for following the Spiritual Artist Podcast. Share this episode. Go in the upper right corner of your podcast player and share this episode with people that you know that maybe frustrated with TikTok, what's going on in the world, give them some ideas, maybe have issues with health that they should, be more consciously aware of. So please share the episode and keep following the Spiritual Artist Podcast. Thanks again. Thanks again for listening to the Spiritual Artist Podcast. Whether you're watching this show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, or iHeartRadio, make sure you choose the subscribe button so that you will receive updates when new segments are released. Most importantly, be still, listen, and know that you are a spiritual artist.